the former WCW World Heavyweight Champion, WCW United States Heavyweight Champion, World Television Champion, Tag Team Champion, Royal Rumble winner, Lex Luger. Lex, how are you doing today?
Man, I'm doing great. What a wonderful introduction. Thank you. Wow.
Well, I didn't do anything for it. You're the one who accomplished all that in your career.
Well, thank you. Kind words.
Well, Total Package, do you mind if I call you Total Package?
Oh, you be my guest.
You've recently moved up to Buffalo, back home to Buffalo. Can you tell our listeners what's going on with that?
Yeah, I'm spending some time with my family, and especially my mom. We lost my dad over the holidays, and life well lived. And they had an epic 64-year love affair. They even had a little mom-pop piano and clock store that they had together. They recently finally retired from for 57 years, so they were literally never out of each other's sight for 64 years. So I'm just having a great time back home, where my roots began here in Buffalo, and just having a great time with my mom, hanging out.
Well, excellent. Can you tell our listeners how you got started in the wrestling business? And I want you to particularly talk about how you came up with the name Lex Luger.
Sure. I had seen the new incredible interest in professional wrestling. I saw that they had broken WrestleMania had broken an indoor attendance record. I think it was a Silverdome. Well, I was still playing football at the time. And I was living in Tampa, Florida in the off season from football. And I just walked into the office of World Championship Wrestling in Florida, which is a territory at the time, a very popular one. They had Gordon Soley as their announcer, and they had a bunch of really well-known wrestlers that wrestled regularly down there. I walked into their office, and a guy named Danny was there who used to wrestle. He sent me to meet Hiro Matsuda, and within about 4 months, I was actually in the ring and made my debut probably 5 months later in Daytona Beach, Florida, in the fall of '85. Well, actually late fall. So it happened quickly. I never really knew whether I'd be able to or was going to be a professional wrestler, and I never went back to football. The rest was history, as we say.
Now, Matsuda is kind of well known for when Hulk Hogan was breaking into the business, giving him a rough time, breaking his leg. Did you experience any of that coming from the world of football into professional wrestling?
Well, fortunately, Matsuda spared me the broken leg, but he was an amazing guy. Looking back on it, it's truly how thankful I am to him. He has just a great guy, wonderful family man behind the scenes, and he just loved training guys. So the intrinsic enjoyment, the love he had for professional wrestling, what it had done for him and his family. As his background, former judo champion in Japan, they called him a hooks guy who could literally break bones. You learned that from a guy named Gotch, I guess, if we go back into wrestling history. And I'd heard rumors about him, but he did the workouts with me. He used to train me before he ever took me to the ring for almost 3 months. He'd do a 5 or 6 mile run in the afternoon in Florida in the summer in the heavy, high humidity to warm up. Then he'd take you in and do push-ups and Hindu squats for like an hour or two to utter exhaustion. He'd do every rep, every Hindu squat, every push-up with you. And at that time he had to be in his late 40s, and I was in my 26, 27 years old. So incredible guy. He was in incredible condition, and didn't ask you to do anything he didn't do, and really wanted to test you to see whether you really wanted to do it with the physical regimen at his garment. He actually did it at a garment clothing small factory, and he used to turn the air conditioning off after lunch, so it would be like 120 degrees in there. It was incredible. Most guys would go there a couple of days and just quit and leave. So I made it through that before he took me in the ring for about 2 months, and then he took me in the ring, and it's funny you asked me about, to get to your other part of your question, which I forgot to answer, was he had me come to my first TV taping for Championship Wrestling in Florida. This was probably a month before I was actually going to make my ring debut in Daytona Beach, Florida, and I think it was October, Halloween night, I think, in Daytona Beach in '85. And They had me go out on TV, and Ravishing Rick Rude and Percival Pringle, who ended up being Undertaker's manager, he and Rick were together, and they wanted to send me out on TV to see how I looked on the camera. So they're going to be interviewed on TV down there. And they said, okay, go out with those guys, take your shirt off, and just stand behind them and don't say a word. So I'm like, okay, I think I can do that. And I'm getting ready to go out the door, and Blackjack Mulligan and Wahoo McDaniels are standing there. I go, well, what's your name? I said, well, it's Larry Lawrence or Larry Full. They go, oh, we can't call you that. So they're going back and forth. And I'm going out literally in a matter of minutes. They're going back, what should we call him? And in case it comes up while he's out there or something. And I go, they're going back with these names. I go, and finally, Matsuda told me, be seen and not heard when you break into wrestling and show respect. Matsuda was huge on that proper protocol. But they weren't coming up with anything. So I had been trying to think of a name when I was training that I'd come up with. So I go, I kind of sheepishly put my hand up. I go, I got a name I kind of thought of. If you want to hear it, sir, Mr. Wahoo, sir. And he kind of looked at me, him and Blackjack looked at each other and kind of smirked. Like, okay, kid, what name do you got? I go, well, I came up with the last name, Luger, because I come from German descent. My real name's German, full. I go, and the big hit TV series at the time was Magnum P.I. It was number one for like umpteen successive years on TV in the 80s. And Tom Selleck played Magnum. So I go, well, if he can be called Magnum, I can be called Luger. And that's the name I thought I'd go by during my career. And if somebody liked the name, and Lawrence and Larry, my legal names, didn't go with Luger. I said, that doesn't sound good, Lawrence Luger or Larry Luger. So I started coming up with the first time. I was a huge Superman comic book and movie and TV fan. So I said, man, I'm using the name Lex. Maybe I'll be a bad guy when I break in. So I put Lex Luger, and I explained it to them the way I just explained it to you. They looked at each other like, kind of shrugged their, well, it's better than what we got. So, okay, we'll call you Lex Luger. So that's how that came about. And then I'm going out. Then one more caveat to that. The reason I was always said I was from Chicago rather than Buffalo, they go, wait a second. Just in case it comes up, where are you from? I go, Buffalo, New York, born and raised. They look at they go, you can't, he can't be from Buffalo. Like Buffalo sounds lame. They go, say something else to listen to my accent kind of. It's kind of a Midwestern twang to how I talk. They go, and Blackjack thought maybe Detroit sounded better, and Wahoo thought Chicago, and they ended up agreeing on Chicago. So in a matter of about 2 minutes, my Lex Luger name was born, and where I was from was born. It stuck with me my entire career. But that shows you how much thought and how big a star they thought I was going to be, because they put very little thought into it.
Well, it is funny that in a matter of 2 minutes, it's decided what you're going to go by, and that was 31 years ago, and you know, everybody around the world knows who you are by that name. So that's pretty amazing that something that quick can determine part of your fate for the rest of your career. So
yeah, fortunately it stuck, and it became a name that was known in professional wrestling for sure.
All right, I'm going to kick it over to the Heroes and Legends champion Drew Skills for his first set of questions with you, Lex.
Hey, Drew.
Lex. Great to hear you. Great to have you on today.
Legends champion?
Heroes and Legends, yes, sir.
So I guess I'm asking you a question before you ask me. It's not fair, but so you're a hero and a legend.
I'm the champion of Heroes and Legends. I'm not sure I would call myself either of those.
I'm kidding. Go ahead, Drew.
Man, it's great to have you on today, Lex. You're talking a little bit about getting started down there in Florida. I was wondering what transitioned you in moving on and throughout the NWA, how that happened.
Well, the NWA thing was Flair. I hadn't realized the time. Bill Apter took a liking to me, Pro Wrestling Illustrated. He started putting me on all those covers, and which, looking back now, was wonderful. And so the Crockett's sent Flair down on a scouting trip to wrestle me. We did an hour Broadway, coincidentally, in Daytona Beach, Florida. And that was an incredible night, which is a whole other story. but we did an hour Broadway, which I was so nervous because how do you wrestle for an hour? I hadn't gone more than like 5 minutes. And of course, Rick got me through it. But, Rick came down a scouting mission so they could see me on the ring with Rick, and went back there, and I guess they watched the match in the Crockett's and Dusty, and Rick collaborated and decided to make me an offer to bring me in just a matter of a few months later to the NWA based out of Charlotte. And I, of course, jumped at the opportunity. So that's how all that happened.
Well, that's great, man. I tell you, I was always a huge fan. You talk about Rick, seeing you with those guys in the Four Horsemen, man. That was, I love some of the other incarnations as well, but that was one of my favorite. Was you four? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's kind of strange because I was not a real historian on wrestling or knew the background of how huge the Four Horsemen group was. Ole Yarn and Tully and Nate and JJ, and I didn't even know who the other Four Horsemen were other than Rick. I didn't know their names. I didn't know JJ. If you'd asked me to point them out in a photo lineup, I couldn't pick them out. So I kind of didn't realize, because everybody's making a huge show. Oh man, you're gonna go up there and be one of the Horsemen? They're like, you got to be kidding me! I go, and I was like, well, I was excited, but I had no idea the level that those guys were at in the fans' eyes. And now historically, come in and end up taking Ole's spot, really, because Ole didn't want to wrestle full time anymore. And his kid was a high school wrestler and he wanted to be home a lot. So they wanted to insert a new guy and to get that opportunity. And then for them to decide to give me that slot was just an amazing opportunity. I didn't really grasp at the time. And, to see historically the significance of the Horsemen as one of the best heel groups of all time in pro wrestling was just an amazing opportunity, for sure.
Oh, for sure. Most definitely. And as the young guy coming in with the great body, to me, I thought it was a great fit. I really enjoyed that era. How was it personally with those guys? You hear stories about them traveling and stuff. On a personal level, did you guys hang out or?
We did. It was insane. And for the couple of years I traveled with them, I felt like I didn't sleep. I went sometimes 3 or 4 day weekends with no sleep. It was ridiculous. It was from the old work hard, play hard era. And Nate's would go from an hour Broadway to the bar scene, and then pay the band $1,000 every 5 minutes to keep on playing. Then we'd end up getting to the hotel at 6 a.m. and now you get to lay down in bed and you have to grab our bags and catch the flight out that morning to the next town. Then Flair, Iron and Tully and JJ would go to bed, and Flair and I would go to the gym together. So we literally, youth, I guess, don't know how I did it, but Rick and I would go 3-4 days on those weekends without any sleep.
Wow.
And then we might nap on the plane for a few minutes, and then we'd land, go to the gym, and then go to the building and start all over again for 3 or 4 day weekends. And then I go, man, Rick, I can't wait to get home and get some sleep. Yeah, this is insane. And Rick goes, whoa, you can't go home to the wife all tired and worn out like you've been out partying. Because Rick used to say, people have to Google this. He goes, you got to kick the door in like Rudolph Valentino and sweep your wife off her feet and show you how much you missed her. So I was like, man, Rick, I don't get to go home and sleep. He goes, oh no, you gotta be a ball of energy when you're rolling. You don't want your wife to think you're out partying all weekend. So that was Rick's form of mentoring at the time when I was a brand new young guy in the business. So getting back to the original question, I felt like I didn't sleep sometimes for almost 2 years. Crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy, but it sounds like you had a blast.
Yeah, Rick is an incredible guy to be around, both in the ring, of course, and out of the ring. Is just a charismatic, as Donald Trump would say. Donald Trump categorizes people as high energy, low energy. Rick is off the scale as a high energy guy, for sure. Right
on. Well, another guy, Lex, that you're known for your friendship on screen and off is Sting. Can you tell us a little bit about how your relationship with Sting started?
Well, it didn't get off to a good start. I was pretty full of myself as the brand new Horseman, and Sting approached me in the locker room. I'd watched him from a distance. He was so good in the ring, and like me, like I had the look and I was with the Horsemen as their muscle guy, but Sting was so talented in the ring, so explosive, and always such a great natural worker that I was, to be honest with you, a little jealous. I was trying to find something wrong with him because, we're all competitive. So
right.
I remember he did an interview one time live, and it was lasted like 15 seconds. He got lost and didn't know what to say, so he just beat in his chest and howled and told he was wrestling Ric Flair. He said, "Get your boy, I'm gonna break that big beak nose of yours off." And he howled and hit his chest, and the crowd went nuts. And I looked at Rick. Rick and I were watching the back off camera. I go, Rick, I know you think Sting's really good. I go, but this is before we actually sat down with each other. I go, I was trying to find something wrong with him. Once again, so I go, he's a horrible interviewer, Nate. I go, I don't get it. And Rick goes, well, that's something you're going to learn. He goes, I go, what do you mean? He goes, doesn't matter what he says out there. He goes, the look and the charisma and the energy and what he does in the ring. He goes, Lex, he's just got it. The it factor. And another lesson from Nate. I, of course, didn't want to hear it at the time, so I already almost hated Sting before I actually ever sat down and talked with him. But Sting, which is the wonderful guy that he was, is, and always will be, wanted to break the ice with us. I was at matches one night. It was a house show, and he walked up to me. We'd never really talked. He said, "Hey, I'm Steve Borden, Sting." I go, "Yeah, I know you are." I was unlacing my boots after a match. He goes, Sting was a bodybuilder before he got into wrestling, so he kind of wanted to break the ice. He goes, "Man, I seen you in the magazines and admired your physique." He goes, "And travel on the road like we do." And everything. He goes, "What do you do with your training or your nutrition, especially?" He goes, "What do you eat to stay looking that way?" And I never looked up from unlacing my boots at him as he stood over me trying to break the ice and be nice. And I said, peanut M&Ms and Stolies, and kept on unlacing my boots. And I kind of knew he was standing there for about 10 to 15 seconds. His jaw kind of dropped, and he didn't know what to say. And he just walked away shaking his head. He didn't approach me probably for about another month. But fortunately for me, he gave me a second chance at a friendship. We were at a hotel, and he was eating breakfast at the table. He walked over and joined me for breakfast, and he started teaching me how to eat. He ordered oatmeal and egg whites, and I'd never done the bodybuilding thing. So, yes, we ended up training together. He taught me how to do bodybuilding type training because I came from football. And really I owe Sting for a lot of my knowledge on training and nutrition that really paid off for me throughout my career. And we just became, back then, all the way through even the worst of times for me, I was making a lot of bad decisions in my life. And now we just did a signing together this past weekend. The only reason we do the signings really is that we love seeing the fans, but just so we can hang out together again. And we just are wonderful friends. We have a wonderful friendship. All these years later, almost 30 years later, he is one incredible guy, one incredible friend.
That's awesome. That's a great story, man. That's awesome. And
yeah.
Form such a bond in this crazy business to last for so long. That's great. And I'm going to pass it back over to the bearded wonder, Zane Paisley.
Well, once again, this is the Undisputed Wrestling Show on AngryMarks.com. AngryMarks is the best place to get all your awesome podcasts about professional wrestling and mixed martial arts. We do have on with us the total package, Lex Luger. Now, Lex, I know that your time is short. We could talk to you for hours, literally going over your career. I just want to touch a couple brief things, then I want to talk about what you're doing now. When you were brought into the WWF, it wasn't actually brought into the WWF. It was the World Bodybuilding Federation. Can you tell us why you got started with that?
Yeah, I have actually had a year left on a guaranteed contract with WCW, Ted Turner's organization. And I'd always wanted to, down the road, give WWE, which was covered for WWF at the time, a try. And I wanted to transition to that, and just with the World Bodybuilding Federation, it was a way to not violate the year I had left on my wrestling contract with WCW. So I approached WCW and told them I actually lied at the time, which I didn't have any problem with back then. And I told them I wanted to take a year off. I was feeling burnt out. I just wanted to train and spend time with my family. and didn't want to wrestle for a year, and I'd make my decision where I'd go from there. I was going to look into some other opportunities, and I owned some gyms, and I told them in the fitness field and everything, and I just need some time away from wrestling, from traveling 300 nights a year. So they bought that hook, line, and sinker. Then I turned around and signed a bodybuilding contract. I'd already tested the waters with that, and I got signed a 1-year contract with the World Bodybuilding Federation, and ended up training, hanging out with Vince, and he had a bodybuilding show. We got to be really, really close, and Vince is a gym junkie, and he loved eating tuna fish sandwiches together, and we hit it off great. And that was a great way Vince thought to transition me without wrestling into my wrestling career the following year. So it turned out to be a really good idea for both of us at the time.
So you got injured in a bad motorcycle accident, and then the World Bodybuilding Federation closed down during that time. What was it like when they said, "Hey, we're going to make you the narcissist"?
Well, I was a little taken back at the name because originally they were just not even use Lex Luger anymore. They were going to obviously trademark me just as the narcissist. So it kind of, the creative, Vince and the creative kind of went back and forth in the pros and cons of that, because sometimes Vince likes to just get a brand new clean slate and a fresh start. But a lot of the creative team at WWF time thought that, well, Lex is a big enough star already, it's going to be kind of hard just to like recreate him totally in the fans' eyes, even though we have somewhat of a different fan base. So they decided to call me the narcissist Lex Luger and keep them both in there. But I was originally, we were talking just make me the narcissist. I was like, oh man, they're gonna like totally remake me, and I was a little nervous about that. But I ended up doing a blend of the two, which I was very comfortable with, of course. And I've always thought, well, these guys know a lot more about creating characters and wrestling than I'll ever know. So that was the sort of the birth of the narcissist.
Well, then once that was over, they did the Lex Express, and the merchandising machine was going crazy with that. Everything that you could find with the American flag. What was one or two of the silliest things that you saw your face planted on that WWE was selling at the time?
The silliest? Wow, that's a good question. It's all based on your perspective.
Well,
because,
based on your perspective?
Everything from my perspective was some of the giant. They used to have like giant action figures who were almost kind of scary looking. Me, and they had these giant pillows, which I don't know why. And then they also had a piggy bank that had a flat head so you could insert the coins. I looked like Herman Munster with my face. So those are maybe the first three that come to mind. But yeah, they are a merchandising machine. Halloween costumes, sleeping beds, coffee mugs. They don't leave a stone unturned on the merch for sure. When they make you babyface at WWE, they're the best at that, of course.
Well, I know our time is short. Obviously, people will want to know about NWO, you going back to Nitro and starting that off. But one of the best ways that people can learn about all that is through your book, Wrestling with the Devil. How can our listeners find that so they can read about your reign, ruin, and redemption?
They can go to Amazon. There's a website, LexLugerBook.com. It's available like at Barnes and Noble and all those other bookstores are still in business. Most people buy everything online now, like at Amazon, but it's available almost everywhere, literally. Yeah, and thank you for mentioning that. A great company out of Chicago that's done. Tony Dungy, the football coach, and a lot of guys, they love telling your story, especially if there's a redemptive side to it. And I had spoken, they'd heard me speak somewhere. I do mostly speaking engagements nowadays, and they heard me speak, and I was shocked that they wanted me to do a book, and they said, we'd like to do your story in a book form. I'm like, man, I could never write a book. And they did everything. They signed a writer to me, and I just spoke into the recorder, and they were incredible. I'm really pleased. They did a really nice job on the book for sure. Thank you for mentioning that.
Well, you had mentioned your speaking engagements, and I had the great opportunity to see you speak here in Indianapolis. My friend Rich Abbott put on an event for his group called Wrestling Theology Fellowship. you and Nikita Koloff, which we haven't even mentioned yet because we're almost out of time with you. But you guys came in and spread some great knowledge about your faith. Also sprinkled in some fun things about pro wrestling, and it doesn't seem like a shoot, but you're willing to open up and talk about your time in jail, your injuries, what happened with Elizabeth Hewlett. I want to commend you for being able to speak to all that, and am I right in thinking that that's just part of your journey, and you don't sugarcoat anything?
Yeah, I'm hopeful that by sharing my past and my present and whatever God has for me in the future, that I can just shed some light on for people maybe going through some dark times, that made some bad decisions in life, that have taken down some paths they didn't want to be on, and let them know that for me there can be hope, and that it really just to hang in there, and that God has a plan and purpose for everybody's life. I mean, Nikita is a guy that God reunited and put in my life after I became a born again believer on April 23rd of 2006, and that's really was a huge transformation in my life from that day forward. When you talk about wrestling and all the great things, that incredible things happened in a wonderful career, but that was the biggest event and the biggest day of my life was April 23rd of 2006. And that's really, I can't take any of the credit. That's what turned my life around. So Lex, you turned your life around. I didn't. For me, God saved me from myself, and then he put Nikita's and all these great mentors and these great people and positive influences and mentors and other guys that held me accountable and in my life that I never had before. And that was really what turned my life around. It's been an amazing journey since April 23rd of 2006. And the book goes along with that, to share my story, just to really as an encouragement to others. And we love to get out there, Nikita and I and Sting and I and Ted DiBiase and a lot of the guys who are on their journey with the Lord. Like, we love to get out there. I do corporate, civic, and schools and positive messages type stuff. I've come to learn that I'm actually an encourager, and I love to do that. And we also do a lot of the faith-based stuff. So I really enjoy that. It keeps me busy nowadays. Besides the real emphasis in my life now, which is serving others, and then spending time with my family and friends. The most important of I've been able to maintain a much better balance with all that now than I used to in the past.
Well, I thought part of the touching story that I learned from you was at your lowest point when you were in prison, and the chaplain encouraged you, and you didn't really pay too much attention to him. Then once you came out,
no, I was an atheist.
Right, and he stuck with you, and that really turned you around.
He did. He hunted me down and spent time with me and started working out with me at the gym, and ended up sharing the gospel with me a number of months later. And what only a supernatural transformation that God can do in someone's life, to go from being an atheist to a born again believer. It's pretty incredible story. Amazing journey. So
April 23rd, 2006, the 10-year anniversary that is coming up a week from Saturday. Do you have any plans for that?
It'll be my 10th birthday.
Yeah. Double digits.
Yeah. Pretty special.
So how can our listeners...
I'm going to graduate to middle school in my new life.
How can our listeners find out more about your program, or maybe try to get you to come in for their groups or their churches? Do you have a booking agent, or how would they be able to find out more about that?
They could contact me. Really, the best way. I don't have like a website or anything. Everything I've always done has pretty much been word of mouth, which I'm amazed at. But they could contact me through really my Twitter at Genuine Lex Luger, and they could they had something they could reach me through that and like private message me or something. If they have something they'd like to get through. That's probably the best thing I could think of right now, other than give out my phone number or email. which I've done that a couple times. Like, oh my gosh! So it got kind of crazy doing that. So yeah, that would be the best way to really reach out to me if they had something they wanted to do with me. Would be that.
Well, you mentioned your phone number when we called you to get you on this interview. You had the Rocky theme playing as your ringback tone. That was so cool.
Yeah, there's a special story behind that without going into depth. When I got out of Shepherd Center after my spinal cord injury, they played that song when I graduated from the 2 years of therapy at the hospital, and kind of became my theme song, kind of perseverance and never quit. And I've tried to eliminate and try new ringtones on my phone, but all my friends and family, every time I've tried to do that, there's such an uproar that it's remained for the past 7 years on my phone, the Rocky theme, and people love it. I think a lot of people would rather call my number, listen to the Rocky theme, and my answer, they're disappointed because they really didn't want to talk to me. They just want to hear the Rocky theme.
Well, Drew thought that you were playing a rib on us, that you just sent us a phone number to listen to Rocky or something. So
that would be a good one, Drew. Yeah.
All right. I was
just brain dead for a while. I was getting a no caller ID. I'm like, man, he's got whoever that is. I'm not going to answer a call with no caller ID. I realized, oh no, it's part of the radio, guys. I had a little blank out there. My apologies.
Hey, Drew, we only have a couple more minutes. I wanted to hit one more question at the end with Lex. Do you have a quick question for Lex before we let him go?
No, I know it's time short. You go ahead. I appreciate you coming on here, Lex. It was an honor to get to talk to you. Big fan. Watched you, one of the inspirations for me doing what I do today. So really appreciate your time that you gave to us today.
Oh, thank you, Drew. My pleasure. Continued success with your career, and I've enjoyed being on the show. Thank you, Drew.
Thank you.
Hey, Lex, I've got one or two quick things with you, and I know your time is short.
Okay.
I want to give a shout out to a guy named Josh Lewis that you need to check out sometime. I'll send you a link to him on social media. You are by far his favorite wrestler ever. He is a bodybuilder that's now getting into professional wrestling. He's been taken under the wing by Rob Conway, which I know Drew isn't good friends with Rob Conway, but he's a guy that you need to look out for. And you had mentioned that you were down in Dallas this past week with Sting, and Sting was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. And, you don't have to go too far in depth if you don't want to talk about it, but since you've been repairing your relationships over the last 10 years, repairing your standing not only in the wrestling community but in life in general, do you think that there's still a shot for you to be in the WWE Hall of Fame? I know all the fans know that you are deserving of that honor. Do you think that there's still time for you to be able to get in there, or is that not a goal for you?
Well, there's always time, even if it's post-human. What do they call it? What's the word? Post-human?
Post-mortem?
What do they do? Whatever. Yeah. Something like that.
Posthumous.
Yeah. Sometimes they can even induct you after you pass on. So there's always time. Whether I ever will, I really don't have any idea. They have I'm sure, a very great group of guys and people who discuss who gets in, who doesn't, and when. And if it ever did happen, obviously it'd be a tremendous honor. So it would be a great moment. But I wouldn't be the one to answer how deserving or not deserving or what and I do know, and I discuss it with people, I'm straightforward. A lot of times, just like in football or baseball or other halls of fame, there's also there's weight put on some things that transpired, outside of the ring. And, I know there's consequences for some of the things I did in the past. I know I'm forgiven by most, God first and foremost, and I've been able to forgive myself over time. But I know there's consequences for that, and I'm only guessing because I don't sit in the meeting, but I'm sure that's probably maybe a factor, and I may never get in. And I can live with that, knowing that there's consequences. When I speak to young people, let them know that, hey, your life can go on and you can go on to greatness. But but there is consequences for decisions we make and bad choices we make. And I want you to know that, to weigh that when you think about, what paths you choose in life. So I understand that that's a possibility. I may never get in, but if I ever did, it would be just a tremendous honor for sure.
Well, the WrestleMania and the Hall of Fame ceremony are in Florida next year. That's where you got your start. I think that'd be a great place for you to go in.
Well, thank you. You never know.
I know your time's running short. Is there anything that you'd like to say to your fans before we let you go?
Wow. Just that I love them. I appreciate them. They truly are the foundation, the backbone of everything we do, of why we do it. And some of the, like we talked about earlier, some of the darkest times of my life, the wrestling fans, when I thought I had shamed the industry and myself, and just the way the wrestling fans, when I started getting out and about a little bit with Pastor Steve, which is part of my story that people can read about, I started getting out and about this, the way wrestling fans re-embraced me and let me know it was good to see me again, that they wanted to see me bounce back, and they wanted the best for me for the most part. Just a really special connection between wrestlers and their fans. I think that there's not an industry or a sport on the planet where the fans even come close. When you go to these icon weekends like at WrestleMania, and the turnout and the fans and the love, it goes between the wrestlers and the fans. They're really special. So, just a shout out of appreciation, to all the fans out there who've supported all of us all these years and continue to.
Well, thank you so much, Total Package. We truly appreciate you spending some time with us today. It was a very special episode. We really appreciate it. And any time that you've got something that coming up that you want to talk about, we would love to talk with you again anytime that you're available, okay?
Drew, thank you so much, you guys. Wonderful to be on. All the best. All
right, thank you. Drew Skills.
Zane Paisley. That was Lex Luger.
That was Lex Luger. That was amazing. He was awesome, willing to talk about anything. I think part of the Undisputed Wrestling Show is that we don't need to cover things that have already been covered ad nauseum. We don't need to talk about controversies if there's nothing new and relevant to it. If people want to know about Miss Elizabeth or drug use or anything like that, you can buy his book. He was more than willing to talk about it, but that's something that they can learn about from somewhere else. I like to keep it positive.